What up everyone, I am Havoc and it's time for another review. Welcome to Havoc's Horror Show. I was initially planning on doing a whole month or week of reviews, all based on Halloween or spooky stuff, shit like that. But with my schedule, that wasn't happening. Now I was hard pressed on what I wanted to do first, but then I found a specific set of movies at my local Walmart, and I thought, yes, immediately, let's do those. So today we are reviewing a true classic and a favorite of mine, a film that came out the same year as another very important movie, The Terminator in 1984, also a big favorite of mine. We are reviewing none other than A Nightmare on Elm Street, although with a twist. We'll be pitting it against the less than stellar 2010 remake, and that is where the paradigm shift comes in, where I pit an original with a reboot or remake and compare the two for better or for worse. So without further ado, let's delve into the original.
Right from the get-go, you get this eerie, unsettling feeling delivered by the music and Tina being pursued by the then unseen Freddy Krueger, who I just want to say is my favorite of the horror slasher villains. And the thing is, it's not just Tina, as the main cast has also been having a collective nightmare which they set up early on. This is one instant where the film really shines, is its pacing, setting up the plot beautifully from the beginning, while keeping true to its mystery as well. And the pacing was accentuated by the subtle hints of Freddy throughout the beginning, like the bedsheets changing color in between scenes. That being said, the film does contain some of the typical 1980s teenage tropes, but being within the golden age of slasher films, it's allowed, with some exceptions. This was during the time of nigh entirely practical effects, where prosthetics and clever uses of materials were at their prime. This movie does it exceptionally. The scene where Freddy comes out of the wall using latex to capture his shape, long-armed Freddy, which is creepy as fuck, Freddy cutting a hole in his stomach or cutting off his fingers, ripping off his face, the Tuesday stares, the list goes on. Need I mention the terrifying yet awesome first kill of the movie, where Tina is dragged to the ceiling in what was actually an upside-down room set. And it all reaches a crescendo with the upside-down blood waterfall. Just... ugh. It's moments like those that make me miss when almost all special effects were practical, not this oversaturation of CGI we see today. Now I know, it may look dated today, but the amount of time and effort that went into this is nothing short of applause-worthy. And let's not forget the iconic look of Freddy himself, who is played flawlessly by Robert Englund. I mean, he is the Freddy Krueger after all. Amazing special effects for its time aside, the film also handles its subplots very well too. You have the whole thing with Rod being wrongfully accused for murdering Tina, or Nancy's conflict with her mother, which then turns into a supernatural versus reality thing, where many others in the plot deny the supernatural, only for it to bite them in the ass. Or in this movie's case, kill you in your dreams. And the subplot with Freddy and the parents of the kids on Elm Street really helped to set up the action versus reaction aspect, where the parents killing the child murderer Freddy, resulting in him coming back as a vengeful spirit with some unpleasant, unfinished business. How they handle the progression of Freddy's powers is also well done. How he begins with merely toying with the cast until he finally kills them in more and more grotesque ways. Which, another small detail, as the movie goes on, his voice gets deeper and more demonic, accentuating how he's becoming more and more powerful.
This is God.
And how the movie handles the tension, like how the characters are fighting sleep to stay alive, or how they become more and more disassociated with reality, like when Nancy sees Tina in the body bag, which leads to Nancy's first real meeting with Freddy. And the fact you never see Glenn's body after the blood fountain, just terrifying. Now, I will admit there are some things about this movie I have my gripes with, mainly in how they turn Nancy into a survivalist when she sets up booby traps for Freddy and then she pulls him out of the dream world. Which apparently happens in less than 20 minutes. Which is the time Nancy asked her father, played by John Saxon, to wake her up to draw Freddy out. That time frame seems way too slim. Suspense of disbelief, I remind myself. And the ending is still up for debate. Did Nancy make a deal with Freddy to give her friends back? Or was it all a dream? Or is that how her mother died, as explained in the subsequent sequels, being Freddy got her? I know they hint at it in Freddy's Revenge and Dream Warriors, but it's still something that's never fully explained. But other than those two last things, the original Nightmare on Elm Street set a high bar for the slasher genre. It established a sense of supernatural versus reality, great tension, great suspense, and great all-around horror that altogether the sequels have yet to match. So I'm giving it a gallant rating of 4 out of 5.
The remake, on the other hand,
This is where the paradigm shift comes in. A fundamental flip of everything that made the original what it was. And in this case, not a good way. In 2010, without a go-ahead or even a consult from Wes Craven, a remake was produced by Michael Bay of all people. And it didn't work. It did not work. Like many horror films of the 2000s and 2010s, the movie sticks to a very typical, very bland teenage drama theme. It does nothing to change up the horror formula and merely adapts a lot of themes and structures from many other modern horror films. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Teenage drama and romance, death. Whodunit? Death. What the hell is happening? Death. Oh, this is what's happening and now we stop it. Maybe one more death. Big fight with killer. Killer dies. Everyone goes home. Jump scare. The end. That's pretty much the plot for every modern horror flick. And it's just boring. And this movie nails that criteria. However, they did try something a bit different in the form of some of the characters' backstories, some of which I actually enjoy a bit. Best cases, Freddy and Nancy. Now there is no replacement for Robert Englund, that's for damn sure. But Jackie Earle Haley did a very good job at playing a darker, more sinister Freddy Krueger. This incarnation of Freddy is more in line with Wes Craven's initial design, where Chetty was a child molester and murderer. They even made him look more like a real burn victim. His one-liners even make him more subtle but welcome comeback.
Tag. You're it. How's this for a wet dream? Nice try, Nancy. Now let me take a stab.
However, it wasn't Robert Englund, and there were some scenes where Freddy just made you uncomfortable. I understand that's what they were going for, but there's a point where it's considered too much that it's bad. They did make this version of Freddy a playable character in Mortal Kombat, which I loved, and in Dead by Daylight as well. Still, not Englund. Nancy Holbrook, as she's called in this film, also had a change that I felt was decent, flawed, but very, at best, decent. Played by Rooney Mara, Nancy is more an alternative girl, being somewhat of a misfit among her peers. She's the only one who really recognizes the threat of what's going on. Well, maybe knock off Glenn from the original, Quentin. But that's about it for the cast. Kate Cassidy as Chris in place of the originals. Tina did a decent job as a scared teenager, and the recreation of Tina's death was okay, I guess. But the rest of the cast was pretty lackluster. Now the film's effects. Unnecessary abundance of CGI. They recreated the scene of Freddy coming out of the wall with the latex, but this was entirely CGI and it just looked so god-awful. Even some of Freddy's face was CGI, like where the flesh is exposed. And let's not forget some of the CGI blood. You don't need CGI blood. The use of practical effects that made the original so great is replaced entirely by this cop-out of the already oversaturated CGI of modern film. It just feels so boring, so easy. There are times where CGI is welcome, and this isn't it. This ain't Star Wars or Marvel or any big budget epic. Also, no way would dragging knives across a pipe like that cause sparks like that. It's not a damn buzzsaw. Speaking of which though, this scene is pretty cool despite the fact. Just the seamless transition between the pharmacy and the boiler room. That was cool. But yeah, as a whole, the remake was bad, but did have some, albeit very few, good points. And I mean very few. I'm giving the 2010 remake a Havoc rating of 1.5 out of 5. The first ever in all my reviews. Predictable plot, overused tropes, lackluster cast, more CGI than not England's Freddy, and not so much as a go-ahead from Wes Craven. It's no wonder this movie did so bad. I will admit, though, I will take this over Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. I absolutely hated that movie, and that was with Robert Englund.
Which reminds me, if you want to hear my thoughts on the other Nightmare on Elm Street films, be sure to check out my Stardust, where I'll be uploading short reviews of all of them. Oh yeah, I'm bringing Stardust back. To close off, what did you think of the original and the remake? What's your favorite horror film and or killer? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. In the meantime, everyone, I'm Gallon Havoc, and I'll see you in the next episode of Havoc's Horror Show, where we'll be covering my favorite film of all time, The Crow. And I will see you in the next one. Welcome to prime time, bitch.